संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। So as you have seen, we'll be carrying forward our discussion of the yoga philosophy, or it is actually philosophy and psychology combined in one. So last time we had done the obstacles to the practice of yoga, and today we'll be stepping into the second chapter. Actually, Patanjali Yoga Sutras are divided into 4 chapters. So they start with the highest states. The first chapter is called Samadhi Pad. So the very first chapter gives the description, etc., of the highest states of yoga. But those high states, needless to say, are extremely difficult to attain. Maybe one in millions he attains the final stage. So the next chapter comes down to the basics. The next chapter is called sadhana pad. After sadhana only samadhi can come, but the first chapter is samadhi itself. Because I think maybe he wants to show us the basics, the definition of yoga and all that. Whatever the reason. So the second chapter is called Sadhana Pada, and the very first aphorism of the second chapter gives us the first steps which should be taken so that a person can start his journey on this path, on the path of yoga, sadhana, that is the practice of yoga. So, step by step, and today actually, after having discussed the nature of the mind, etc., now we'll be starting with the first step of sadhana actually. What is that called? That is called Kriya Yoga. Kriya we all know. Kriya literally means work. So Kriya Yoga means working towards the attainment of yoga. Or it may also mean yoga in the form of actions. Or we can say actions performed for the attainment of yoga. Attainment of yoga here means attainment of the final goal of the yoga sadhana. That is samadhi, as we know. So Kriya Yoga can be interpreted in all these ways. Working towards yoga, yoga in the form of action or actions performed for the attainment of the higher states of yoga. So actually, these are very similar to yam and niyam, what we have done. Maybe a little higher form of yam and niyam. Some things are common with Kriya Yoga and yam and niyam, because actually both are the first steps. So it is not something which is absolutely new to us. But since Patanjali has discussed it under a separate heading, we will also do that. So just let me share the first aphorism which we will discuss today. Those who are online can see. Here, this is the problem. Sometimes it doesn't connect. Anyway, this will take time, so I'll just leave it for now. It is a very simple. Even when we pronounce it, we can easily understand. So the sutra you can see in front of you, and the English translation also is given. So only 3 form of actions are prescribed as Kriya Yoga. What are those? The sutra goes like this: Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhanani, Kriya Yoga. So very simple at first glance, at least it seems very simple. So Tapa, that is tapas means austerity, and Swadhyaya. So Adhyayana, as we know, Adhyayana means study. Swa-adhyayana, that is self-study, so to say. But of course there are deeper meanings attached. And Ishvara Pranidhana. Pranidhanani means, this goes into plural form. Ishvara Pranidhana is the third one, that is complete surrender to God. Ishvara Pranidhana. So if we can start attempting these, if we can start the practice of these 3, what are those? First is Tapa, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana. So once we start our practice of these 3 things, it can be said that we are practicing Kriya Yoga. This is the thing. So of course, it seems very simple when we just read it, but the explanations are needed to understand this. So first, we will take these words one by one and see the explanation which has been given by Vyasa. Vyasadeva, he has written the commentary on the sutras, and upon that commentary, many commentaries have been written. So let us see what he says about these, and then we will see what Swami Vivekananda has said. So Swami Vivekananda describes it as tapa as mortification, and study as swadhyaya as study, and Ishvara Pranidhana as giving up all the fruits of work to God. That is called Kriya Yoga. Now let us go to the first word and see what these saints and sages have, how they have explained it. So the first word is tapa. Tapa, we all are familiar with the word. It is sometimes written as tapas and sometimes written as tapasya also. So in introducing the sutra, before this sutra comes, in introducing it, see, each aphorism are connected by one another. So when these commentators, when they write commentaries, they tell us that how the previous sutra is connected with the next sutra. That is how the previous aphorism is connected. They show us the connection. In the Gita also we see the same method followed. So now in introducing the subject, what does Vyasadeva say? Because we are starting a new chapter, sadhana path. So he says that a lot has been said in the previous chapter, samadhi path. Many things have been said. So he says, what are those for, and what we are about to start, what are these for? For whom was the first chapter meant, and for whom is the second chapter going to mean? So everything they tell clearly. It is such a wonderful way. So he says, Uddishta samahita chittasya yoga. Uddishta means what has been stated, what has been taught already. That is in the first chapter. So what were those teachings? Whom were they meant for? He says, Samahita Chitta. Chitta means mind. Samahita means concentrated. So those states of Samadhi, etc., they were told they were meant for those whose minds are already concentrated. Those who have gone very far in the practice of yoga. But we know majority of the people are like us. So for them, this second chapter is started. So, Katham Vyuthita Chitta Api Yoga Yukto Syat. Katham means how. Vyuthita Chitta. Chitta is mind. Vyuthita means those with a distracted mind. Like ours.
Yeah.
So, Vyuthita Chitta Api Yoga Yukta Syat. How they can also attain the state of yoga. That is going to be mentioned. Yeah. So, distracted mind. Distracted mind, what is the distracted mind? Which is Bahirmukhi. There are two things. One is Antarmukhi, it is always going on inside. And one is Bahirmukhi, the mind is always going outside. What I will do, where will I go, what I will eat, what I will wear, what this person is doing, what that person is doing, what Trudeau is doing, what Trump is doing. But we have no idea of what we are doing. So those people, for those people, this second chapter is started. That is called Vyuthita Chitta. So in the Gita also it is the same distinction is made. In the Gita there is a verse, Arurukshor Muner Yogam Karma Karanam Uchyate. Arurukshu means those who are still yet to attain yoga. Arurukshu means those who are desiring to attain yoga. So for those people, Arurukshur Mune, Karanam. Karanam means what is the method by which yoga can be attained. That is karma. Arurukshur Mune Yoga. Yogasya Karanam Karma. Iti Uchyate. That has been said. But Yoga Arudasya, those who have already attained a very high state, Shama Karanam Uchyate. Shama means desisting from actions. Going more and more deeper inside within oneself. Like the disciples of the Master, Sri Ramakrishna, all those were highly spiritual souls. So they could spend months and maybe years in pure meditation. So an ordinary person, if he tries to do that, he will go mad. It is not possible. Because their minds are, people like us, our minds are not yet fit for that. So here also the same thing is said by Patanjali, that those with a distracted mind should start from here. Without starting from here, if they think they can attain Samadhi, it is impossible. Simply efforts will be wasted. So this is how he introduces the second chapter. Now let us see what Vyasadeva says in his commentary about these three words. Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. Now, Tapa, describing Tapa, Vyasadeva does not give the definition of tapasya. He just tells us why is tapas necessary. So for definition, we will go to Swami Vivekananda. So about the necessity of practicing austerities, what does Vyasadeva say? First of all, he says, Na atapasvino yoga siddhyati. Na. It is not possible. For whom? Atapasvina, who don't practice self-control. For them, yoga na siddhyati. Yoga cannot be attained. It is impossible. Absolutely out of the question. Don't even think about it. That doing whatever we like, going wherever we like, thinking whatever we like, we can attain yoga just by hearing some lectures, big words, Aham Brahmasmi and all what is going on nowadays. It is all foolishness, absolute foolishness. So, na atapasvino yoga siddhiti. It cannot be done. Why? Anadi karma klesha vasana chitra pratyupastita vishaya jala cha ashuddhir na antarena tapas sambhedyam apadyate. So it's a long thing. So we'll just see what does it mean. What is the main problem? The main problem in spiritual life is our attraction towards the world and its objects. That is called Vishaya Jala. It is a net. Like we capture a big lion also in a net, simply the Atman has been caught in this net of this world and its so-called pleasures. And what is the cause of that? Cause of that is the impurities in the mind. That is ashuddhi, he says here. Ashuddhi, which is caused by this attachment to the world. And these snares of the worldly objects, which are harmful to yoga, are colored. They are colored means they gain their strength from what? Anadi karma klesha vasana. Anadi karma. Karma here means selfish works. It is going on from eternity. We have been doing that from our beginning. When we had, actually there is no beginning because the soul is without beginning. So that is why he says anadi. That is, there is no adi for this. There is no starting for this. Karma, that is the selfish works. Klesha. Klesha we have already seen. Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha, Vinivesha. These are the kleshas. And Vasana. Vasana is the desire for worldly objects. So, the impurities in the mind which arise from the snares of worldly objects, these are colored by these desires and kleshas, etc., from beginningless time, because time has no beginning. And they cannot be got rid of without the practice of austerities. Na tapah sambhedyam apadyate iti. That is why tapasa upadanam. That is why austerities have to be practiced. Otherwise, something cannot be cleaned without doing anything. If something is rusted or something, what do? We scrub and scrub and scrub. All the vessels we put in the dishwasher and all those high power. Otherwise, how will it be cleaned? It is not possible. So all these dross in the mind has to be cleaned by the opposite thing which has put this dross. What is the cause of this uncleanliness? The cause is our attachment to the world and its objects. So that cause has to be removed. So if we don't do something positive to remove that, how will it be removed? It is impossible. It cannot be done. That is why tapasya is mentioned. That is why austerities have to be practiced. So, and what is the nature of the austerities? First of all, it will lead to great good. Chitta prasadanam. Our mind will become calm when we really seriously try to practice these things. And second thing he mentions is chitta prasadanam abadham. Abadha, should be no badha, that is, there should be no obstruction. We cannot say that, today we will practice Kriya Yoga, but then we will take 5 days holiday, then we will again start practicing. So much has been stored here, what we don't want, that if we keep on taking holidays, we will never achieve that. So there is no holidays. Abadha. Abadha means absolutely there should be no break in these practices. So it has been recommended that an undisturbed course of self-purificatory conduct should be practiced if we want to really practice yoga seriously. That is the thing. And then he mentions, first he has described what is the necessity of this tapasya. Now he describes the other two words, that is, what do they mean? What is swadhyaya? So now he says, swadhyaya means repetition of Omkar Adi mantras. Mantras we all know. Omkar Adi. Pranava Adi. Pranava is Omkar. Omkar, of course, is that is the best. That is, all the mantras in the Indian tradition have that Omkara. So, doing japa of Om, etc. means other mantras which are given by the Guru, etc. So, repetition of these, which is called japa in Indian tradition, and moksha shastra adhyanam. Adhyayana means not any book which we get hold of. It is specially only those books which will show us the way to free ourselves from this world and its attachments. That is called moksha or mukti shastras, like the Gita and the Upanishads, etc. So, study of these, and with that practicing the repetition of these mantras is called swadhyaya. Next is Ishvara Pranidhana. Ishvara Pranidhana means abandonment of all hankering for the fruits of our actions. I will do this only to get this. That is business. Itna diya, itna liya. But that is not the way to mukti, because then it is same thing. It is the same cycle of karma. Give something, take something, again give something. So since we are acting with desire, that action will again produce new karma, which again we have to bear, and then we will start doing karma again. So there is no end to this cycle. It will keep on and on and on. So we have to cut this. Cut this means perform actions without desiring their fruits. But that is extremely difficult. It's not suddenly we will wake up one day and start doing unselfish actions. It cannot be done because the mind is not prepared. So mind has to be prepared by these austerities and sadhana like jap, etc. Then only we can think of even trying to do actions which are truly unselfish. But before that also, we can do some works, at least some part of our daily activities or some part of our income, etc. All these have to be kept so that from those things we don't ask for anything. Like many people they keep some hours, for what they call charity work, like going and teaching somewhere or volunteering in some organization, and a portion of their income they keep only for giving. So at least that is a start. So once we start, then we can go higher and higher in this. So this is what Vyasadeva says about these three words. Now, as we have seen, he has not really given in detail the meaning of tapa, that is the meaning of tapasya, that word. So, Swami Vivekananda has, in his whole works, he has discussed this word many times. We will just see some important definitions of this word so that we can have an idea that when we are asked to practice tapas, what should we actually be doing? So this is a concept which is there in all the scriptures. There is not a single scripture which does not have this word and which does not stress the necessity of practicing this tapasya. In the Gita, 3 kinds of tapasya have been mentioned. All that we will discuss. In the Upanishads it is said, in the Taittiriya Upanishad it is said, tapasa, this means by tapas, through tapas, Brahma vijigyasasva, seek to know God. How? Not by lying down in a comfortable sofa and with all the comforts and television in front of you, not like that. It cannot be done. Seek to know how? Through tapas. Now, what is tapasya actually? So, a commentator on the Yoga Sutras, a renowned, he was a very, very great yogi also, Hariharananda Aranya, he describes it in very simple words. He says, tapasya is renunciation of sense pleasures, desisting from actions which bring momentary pleasures and putting up with the resulting hardship. So you go to a mall and see some delightful pizzas and burgers and all that. Then you say to yourself, no, I will not have these. So that is, you can say, a form of tapasya when you deny yourself those pleasures willfully, not because the price is high. That is not tapasya. You can't purchase it then. But you have access, but you willfully deny yourself these pleasures which are momentary. It will last in our mouth for just 5 minutes, maybe, even less. For that we are going round and round each day from morning to night. So he describes it in a very simple way. Now, let us see what Swami Vivekananda says about this. I have taken from some other places in his lectures, not only from the commentary on this sutra. In this sutra, he has not given much detail. So, in one of his lectures, he says, it is true that spiritual illumination shines of itself in a pure heart. That means illumination does not have to be created. When the mind is pure, the illumination will come itself. Like the sun will shine of itself when the clouds are removed. So it is true that we don't have to create spiritual illumination. We don't have to create God. It is not something acquired from outside. But it is true that pure heart, these will come. But he says to attain this purity of heart means long struggle and constant practice. So about himself, once Swami Vivekananda had said that my master had told me, when that is Sri Ramakrishna had told him, that if I could purify my heart completely, I would gain spiritual insight. And I think he told this to an American audience. He said, now only I am appearing before you when I am confident that I have reached that state. That is coming from Swami Vivekananda. So you can imagine what it means. So he says to attain this purity of heart means long struggle and constant practice. It has also been found on careful inquiry in the sphere of material knowledge that those higher truths which have now been discovered by great scientific men have flashed like sudden floods of light in their mental atmosphere. So he says, like spiritual illumination, even in the material world, when a scientific genius discovers something, some law, something, then what happens? It suddenly flashes upon their brain. So they discover that law. So he says, scientific men, even in the brains of scientific men, these truths regarding the material world flashed like sudden floods of light in their mental atmosphere. But such truths never appear in the mind of an uncultured and wild savage person. He says this. So these truths, if they are to make their appearance in our mind, the mind has to be prepared. Otherwise, how can it come? If the mind is covered by all kinds of things, those truths cannot penetrate inside. There is a sponge. The sponge we use for dish cleaning and all. So we use a sponge, not a stone. Because that soap will penetrate only inside a soft sponge. It cannot penetrate inside a hard surface. Similarly, our minds have to be made like that, which can absorb higher ideas. Otherwise, even if someone tells us, it will be no use. It will be just like planting a seed on barren ground. The seed is perfect, but the ground is not ready for that. It cannot make use of that. So we read in the life of Sri Ramakrishna also that maybe two friends came to hear him. So one was listening attentively, but the other person was getting impatient. He was again knocking him with his arm. Arey, let's go somewhere else. Let's go somewhere else. Because his mind is not yet ready for that. He will find no connection with his life. This is the thing. So that is why Swamiji says, all this goes to prove that hard austerities in the shape of devout contemplation and constant study of a subject is at the root of all illumination. So not only in spiritual field, these are the root of any higher achievement. That devotion. So when these big, great artists and all, singing or any painting, etc., they are all highly cultured people. Otherwise, their hands can never work that way. Their throats can never work that way. They can never sing that way, or they can never play an instrument that way. Till a mind has risen to a certain state, these activities won't give any pleasure at all to a person. He will be more interested in eating, drinking and making merry. So that is why Swamiji says, and especially in spiritual life, devout contemplation and constant study of the books which tell us about this spiritual life. That is called the Moksha Shastra, or those which teach us about liberation. Even for worldly achievements, like suppose a great singer or somebody, if you ask them, somebody had said, who had said, Einstein, that genius is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. I think maybe Mozart or somebody had said it. So genius, when we call genius, he said it is 99% perspiration. They have worked hard for years and years and years. Then their minds could be made ready for churning out that music. That is the thing. So this is one thing which Swamiji says. Then another very, very different way in which he interprets tapasya, and it is especially, this is very relevant to people like us. So once what happened was, Swami Vivekananda, those who have read his works, they are familiar with the book Talks with Swami Vivekananda. So those talks were recorded by his disciple Sharat Chandra Chakravarti. So what Swamiji said to him, he recorded and then published. So this is a part of that book. Swamiji was conversing with Sharat Chandra Chakravarti that time. So Swamiji was praising Swami Akhandananda. Swami Akhandananda was a great Karma Yogi, the first relief work of the Ramakrishna mission was started by him. And this worship of Jiva as Shiva was his motto. and the whole of his life practically he did that. So Swamiji was telling this Sharat Chandra Chakravarti, praising Swami Akhandananda. He was telling, mark you, what a great hero he is in work. He means Akhandananda. Of fear, death, and the like, he has no cognizance. He doesn't know what it is to fear. Life and death have no meaning for him. It is all the same for him. So, with great tenacity, he is going on doing his own work for Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya, for the welfare of the many, for the happiness of the many. Nothing for himself. So now, when Swamiji says this, his disciples, Sharat Chandra Chakravarti, he asks him, but sir, that power through which Swami Akhandananda has been able to work in this way, that power must have come to him as a result of a great deal of tapasya, a great deal of austerity. Otherwise, how can he work like this? It is impossible. Years and years and years without even thinking of his own health, he is working. So now Swamiji says, yes, power comes from tapasya, that is, power comes from austerity. But again, working for the sake of others itself constitutes tapasya. Why do you think that tapasya can have only one form? Tapasya means what? Self-denial. In short, that is the word's meaning. That is the essence. So, when these persons like these people, Akhandananda and all that, when they have given their whole life for the service of others, is that also not tapasya? This is what Swami Vivekananda says. Then he says, as on the one hand, the practice of tapasya intensifies these altruistic feelings in the devotee and goads him to unselfish work, so also the pursuit of work for the sake of others carries the worker to the last fruition of tapasya. This is the main thing. So what has been described as tapasya, that will give us the power to work for others. That is true. But if we work for others, that itself also is a tapasya. And that also has the ability to take us to the final fruits of what is called tapasya generally. That is the thing. What is that? Namely, the purification of the heart. And that leads him thus to the realization of the Atman. That is Swami Vivekananda's words. So these are very important, because in the olden tradition only one form of tapasya has been mentioned generally. But for this age, Swamiji gives us this wonderful insight also. So, Tapa Swadhyaya Ishwara Pranidhana. Now we come to study. What is meant by study here? Swami Vivekananda says, not study of novels or storybooks, but study of those works which teach the liberation of the soul, that is the Moksha Shastras. Now, the important point he makes is, often what happens, people when they start studying, they become fond of arguments. Many people say, oh Swamiji, this and this person does not want to understand. I have told him so many times, he does not want to accept Swami Vivekananda, he doesn't want to accept Ramakrishna, or whatever. A Christian may tell this of Jesus Christ or something. So this is the problem. Trying to convince others or going into arguments. So regarding this, Swamiji says, this study does not mean controversial studies at all. Why? Because the yogi means one who has started heart and soul his journey. He has supposed to have finished this period of controversy. All this arguing, this is right or that is right, he has finished, that person. He has had enough of that and has become satisfied. He knows now what he is supposed to do. So he is finished with all these arguing and trying to prove this person right or that person right. He only studies to intensify his conviction. That is the only thing. Now he is convinced. He has no doubt. Like some persons who read the Gita or Upanishads or Swamiji's words, they may doubt first. Is it correct? Is it really, does it really happen? Is there a soul? Is there something known as liberation? But if he keeps studying, then all the doubts clear up. Then he becomes firmly convinced that these are true. Okay, but he has to intensify those convictions. Intensifying means again and again reminding his mind, reminding himself. So he studies only for that purpose. That is all. Not to go into some debating society or arguing with others or not to convince others, not at all. So Swamiji says Vada and Siddhanta, these are the two sorts of knowledge. Vada is the argumentative knowledge. Siddhanta is the decisive knowledge. So when we reach Siddhanta means what? It is over for us. We are convinced. Now we just have to practice. So when a man is entirely ignorant, he takes up the first, the argumentative side. Reasoning, pros and cons, etc. When he finishes with that, he comes to the decisive stage. That is a Siddhanta. He has arrived at a conclusion. He has no doubt. So, but again, simply arriving at a conclusion will not do. As we had seen a few talks previously, those have to be rejuvenated. We just wash a vessel once and keep it, but that is not sufficient. If we take out after 6 months, again we have to wash it. So similarly, the mind is also like that. Although we are convinced, but those conclusions need to be intensified. So Swamiji says that is the aim of study of the yogis. They don't study to convince others or go into any arguments. They just study so that their convictions are intensified, and by that intensification, their sadhana will gain strength. That is all. And books are infinite in number. So he says, choose those which are most helpful for you in your spiritual life. That is the thing. So he says, that is why for those who are really interested in sadhana, he says, I quote, do not argue. If one forces arguments upon you, be silent. Do not answer any argument, but go away calmly, because arguments only disturb the mind. 1 hour you will shout and scream at someone else, and then what will happen? You will only disturb your mind. Maybe you will never convince that person. So there is no use for that. The only thing necessary is to train the intellect, to train our mind for spiritual life. What is the use of disturbing it for no reason? Going and quarreling or arguing with others, it has no use. So the yogi wants to go beyond the senses. Therefore all this argumentation, etc., is of no use to him. He is certain of his convictions and therefore is silent and does not argue. Every argument throws his mind out of balance, creates a disturbance in the chitta. That lake, calm lake, will become disturbed, waves will arise. And every disturbance is a drawback. Then we have to sit calmly for 10 minutes and make the mind calm, etc. That we have all seen. Suppose we are angry, then what happens? It requires some time. Be calm, be calm. We tell ourselves again and again. So, this is the thing. There are much higher things than arguments, he says. The whole of life is not for schoolboy fights and debating societies. Those have their place. But once you are convinced, you need not bother about those things. Let others do those things. This is the thing. Now we come to the last one. What is that? Very simple. At least in telling it is very simple. That is Ishvara Pranidhana, surrendering the fruits of work to God. Giving up everything to God. So in the Gita also it is said, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yat juhoshi yadasi dadasi yat tapasyasi. Even what you perform, tapasya you perform. Tat kurushva. Do that. What to do with that thing? Mad arpanam. Give it all unto me, God says. Then what will happen? You will get neither the good results nor the bad results, and you will become free. Shubha Shubha Falaireva Moksha Se Karma Bandhana. Anyway, so this has been mentioned in all the scriptures that this giving up the fruits is the highest worship of God. In the Kurma Purana it is said, Yadva Falanam Sanyasam Prakuryat Parmeshware Karmanam Etadapyahur Brahmarpanam Anuttamam. This is the best, Anuttamam. What? Brahmarpanam. What we can give to God. What? Falanam Sanyasam. Giving up the fruits of work to God, that is the best offering which we can do. And this performance of Kriya Yoga, how will it help us? Already we have seen what Vyasdev says about tapasya. So in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras also, the next sutra, next aphorism, that is the second aphorism of the second chapter, it tells us how the practice of Kriya Yoga will help us. Samadhi bhavanartha klesha tanukaranarthascha. Samadhi bhavanartha. It conduces to the state of reaching Samadhi. And second is klesha tanukarana. So if you remember, we have already discussed this, that the kleshas means pain bearing obstructions in the path of yoga, which are also painful. So we have seen that they exist in various forms. First they exist in the dormant form, they exist in the active form, then they exist in a repressed form, and they exist in an attenuated form, that is the Tanu form. Tanu form means weakened form. So these practices which are mentioned in the Kriya Yoga will weaken those kleshas. And when the kleshas are weakened, we can gain control over them very easily. That is the thing. So it is being weakened, we can make out ourselves. We will be able to make out ourselves. Like those who are habituated to going here and there and eating this and that all the time. Their minds are always disturbed. What this store is selling, what that store is selling, what. So once they give up that, suppose 1 month they take a vow, no, I will not go for all that. Then immediately they will see after 1 month that those distractions, that tendency will become less. They won't feel that terrible urge. for all addictions, like smoking, etc., this is true, that once, that first giving up is very hard, but once we can do that through willpower, then if we don't give any break, then after a period of time, we will see that the tendency to have those things has become weak. So this tendency towards sense pleasures is nothing but klesha. So it will become weak when we don't give in to those temptations over a period of time. Not, it won't happen in one day. So this we can experience ourselves, that how these things will be slowly, it takes a lot of time, but slowly it becomes weak. So what is the current state? Our current state, Swamiji says, most of us make our minds like spoiled children. Children will ask something. If they are spoiled by their parents, they will immediately get it. And once they become spoiled over a long period of time, it is very difficult to make them disciplined again. They simply won't listen because it is their habit now. So our minds are also like that. We have been giving it whatever it likes for so long. Want to eat this? Oh, you have to go. Go to the mall and eat. Purchase that right now. Otherwise there is no use in living. That is our state. So most of us make our minds like spoiled children, allowing them to do whatever they want. Therefore, it is necessary that Kriya Yoga should be constantly practiced, constantly, in order to gain control of their mind. Otherwise, just like spoiled children, the mind will never come under our control. It will go on whatever it does, whatever it likes. The obstructions of yoga arise from lack of control and cause us pain. They can only be removed by denying the mind, holding it in check. So if a child has been spoiled, if you still keep on giving whatever he wants, you will be spoiling him all the more. That's all. So you have to put a stop someday. So many things happen, especially with the children of rich people and all. We just some months ago I read some brat, spoiled brat, his Mercedes was there. He crashed and killed some people also. This is what happens. Go, my son, do anything you like, this is what happens. So, similar is the case with the mind. If you keep on spoiling it, giving it all the things it wants, and the mind in the beginning it only will want all these silly things, then it is impossible to control it, and afterwards it will become absolutely out of control. So before that you have to stop. The sooner we stop, the easier it will be, and the more we delay, the more difficult it will be. After an age it becomes practically impossible, because the whole life has been spent like that. So in Hindi se say that अब पछतावत हो क्या जब चिड़िया चुग गई खेत. All your crops have been eaten by the birds. Now you are coming with a stick on your hand. What will help? Everything is gone. So before that, we should be alert about these things. That is the thing. So this is Kriya Yoga. So let us stop here for today. And after this, I will just inform you about one small thing before you leave. Then we can have if anybody wants to say something. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.